All right, we will make a start. So thank you very much for joining us for this event introducing the RefugEAP Programme. This is organized as part of the University of Leicester's Working Buyers Refugee Week 2023. So we will have several speakers with us, the two main one being Aleks, my colleague who works as well as part of the Sanctuary Seekers Unit at the University of Leicester, and Deirdre McKenna from the University of Leeds, but they will introduce themselves a bit later. I'm Pascal Roussel. I'm one of the organizers for Breaking Barriers Refugee Week. And I've also got my colleague Julie Umarova in the background, who is currently letting people in. So before we start, we will just go through a few housekeeping rules. So you will not be able to unmute yourselves. That's to make sure you don't appear on the recording by accident, because then the recording will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So please use the chat box if you have any questions or comments. And of course, please be kind and respectful. If you have any issues or concerns, you can also send a private message to Julie Umarova directly using the chat box. So we will send you a link to the recording after Breaking Barriers Refugee Week is finished. And if you have any queries following this session, you can email sanctuary@le.ac.uk. All right, and now I will introduce our speakers. So first of all, with us, we have Aleks Palanac. As I said, she works with me in the Sanctuary Seekers Unit at the University of Leicester, and I will let her introduce herself quickly now.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm Aleks Palanac, and I'm Head of Sanctuary at the University of Leicester. Over the last few years, I've been involved in developing sanctuary provision for refugee background students to access higher education, particularly through English language pathways, and especially through trauma-informed provision. So I'm going to hand over to Deirdre now to introduce herself.
Thanks, Aleks. Hi, everyone. I'm Deirdre McKenna, and I'm working at the University of Leeds. So I'm a lecturer in EAP, and at the University of Leeds, I'm also involved in some sanctuary work with refugee background students. And through that work, I got to know Aleks. So we've started working on this programme together. Yeah, so we'll start now with an overview. I'll hand back to Aleks.
Okay, so what is the RefugEAP Programme? Well, so it's a free online pre-university academic English skills programme for refugee background students across the UK. And this was developed by Deirdre and myself in response to a need that we identified. And this relates to the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is involved in ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education for all. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? So we're going to talk about the need for the RefugEAP Programme, and then we're going to give you an overview of the 2 phases of this programme. And then we'll talk about some of the underlying principles. And then we'll hand over to our partners to tell you a little bit about their involvement in the programme. And then we will hear from some of our tutors and a student about their thoughts about the programme. And then we'll finish with giving you some links to some further information and resources. Next slide, please. So to set the context, only 6% of the world's eligible refugees have access to higher education, as compared with 40% of non-refugees. So next slide, please. So there are a number of reasons for this, and Stevenson and Baker identified that this disparity was due to a number of different barriers getting into higher education, but they also found that those refugee background students who did get into higher education experienced barriers throughout their programs of study and also while they were transitioning out of higher education. So the main barriers that they identified were finance, because many programs were just out of the budgets of refugee background students. Also difficulty evidencing prior educational achievements. Quite often people's certificates are left back home and they didn't manage to bring them over with them when they left their country. Difficulty accessing appropriate information, advice and guidance. Also mental health difficulties, including trauma. Also various practical or situational barriers, such as complications with an asylum case or dealing with poor housing, for example. And also there's the language barrier. And so that's what we're going to focus on next. So in terms of this language barrier, Stevenson and Baker pinpointed a certain type of provision which is key to plugging this gap. But they said that what those people seeking access to higher education need is English for academic purposes, which enables them to develop those sorts of English language skills needed for higher level academic and vocational courses, specifically those related to critical reading. These courses are not free and so are out of the reach of many refugees. So Deirdre and I, we did a bit of research of our own and we found out that some universities are making free places available on pre-sessional academic English programs, but there are still not enough places to meet this need across the UK. So we decided to set up the RefugEAP Programme, which is an online academic English programme for refugee background students across the UK, with classes taught by experienced volunteer tutors, some of whom are here with us today. So this programme is for students who have a background of forced migration and are based in the UK, have qualifications equivalent to level 3 or above, so that's like equivalent to A-levels, who have a goal of studying at a UK university, who have an English language level equivalent to IELTS 5.5 or above, who are able to commit to the course, who have access to a device and a stable internet connection, and who have been referred onto the scheme by associate universities and organisations. And as I mentioned, the classes are taught by volunteer tutors, and each of our tutors on phase 1 of the programme commits 1.5 hours per week to teach these synchronous classes. They can be based anywhere. Some of our tutors are based outside of the UK. They need to have good internet connection, a good deal of experience teaching EAP, and preferably experience of teaching online, of teaching refugee background students, and holding a qualification such as a Delta. So now I'm going to hand over to Deirdre to talk about the different phases of this programme.
Thanks, Aleks. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit more about phase 1 and phase 2 and what a student's journey looks like when they join us in the RefugEAP Programme. So as Aleks mentioned, our students are currently referred to us either by RefugEAP or through other partners, university partners. So we have the recruitment phase, which involves interviewing the students, finding out if they're suitable for joining us on the course, finding out if they're able to commit to the time involved, and also if their current level is suitable. So we do a password test with them. And then once they're placed with us, they join phase 1 of the course, which is a 10-week group course. And after completing the 10 weeks, then they're given the opportunity to join us for phase 2, which is a more individual part of the course, which involves mentoring and workshops. So I'm going to tell you a bit more now about phase 1. All right, so phase 1 of the programme is the group course. And in this, we're really trying to help students to be prepared to join a future university programme. So the aims of phase 1 are to help students to become more familiar with the language and skills that they would need for future study in a UK HE context. And we also have the aim of helping them to get to know more about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, I'll tell you a bit more about how that's involved in the course a bit later. So we want the students to develop knowledge of these goals and to become familiar with the process of critically evaluating. So we use the SDGs as a central focus for that. And another really important aim is to help our students become more reflective and autonomous learners. So we give them lots of opportunities to reflect on their own progress, to reflect on their learning strategies, to manage their own time in independent study, and so on. So now I'll tell you a bit more about the structure of the course. So as Aleks mentioned, it's an online pre-sessional style course, which is part-time, and it runs for 10 weeks, plus an induction week where we get the students to become really familiar with what the expectations are to make sure it's suitable for them and that they're suitable for the course as well. And then when the course is running, the 10 weeks are taught by our volunteer tutors who teach 2 90-minute sessions a week. So there's 3 hours of face-to-face contact time a week. And as well as that, the students are also taking part in an independent study programme, which they need to commit to a minimum of 3 hours per week as well. And the final element of the phase 1 course is the tutorials. So we have currently 3 tutorials per course, which is a combination of individual and group tutorials. So as I mentioned, one of the central themes of the RefugEAP course is the Sustainable Development Goals. So one of the reasons that we've chosen this is because we've used as the basis of our materials, we started off by looking at Develop EAP, which was published by Avril Bolster and Peter Levry. So we used that as the basis for our course, and they've used the SDGs in their materials as well. And the second key theme is the personal study goal development. So students work on their study goals and try to develop areas that they're interested in over the 10-week programme. So in terms of assessment, we have weekly formative assessments, which could be things like formative writing tasks, short presentations, and reflective tasks. And that's helping the students work towards 2 summative assessments, which are a group essay, which involves critically analysing the SDGs, which is worth 50% of the final mark, and an individual presentation on their study goal progress, which is also worth 50%. So at the end of phase 1, students will be given a certificate to show that they've completed the course, which depends on if they attended regularly and if they were engaged in the programme. And then they'll be given the opportunity to move on to the second phase, phase 2, so they can continue on for the next 10 weeks. So I'll tell you a little bit more about phase 2. So this is the more individualised part of the programme. So we help the students to continue working on their personal goals through individualised one-to-one EAP support. And they also have the chance to prepare for the IELTS exam if that's one of their goals, if that's something that they want to work on. So again, phase 2 goes for 10 weeks, and the students are paired up with an EAP mentor, and they have the chance to have between 5 and 10 tutorials over that 10-week period, depending on what their needs are. They also get the chance to join IELTS workshops and other language classes, depending on what their needs are and depending on what they want to attend. And they also are given access to Oxford EAP Upper Intermediate online course books. So we've been given access codes from Oxford to work on in this phase 2 as well. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit more about the principles underlying the programme. So the first main principle that we were thinking about was trauma-informed pedagogy. So this is an approach that acknowledges the impact of trauma on students, and this is especially important for us given that our students are coming from a refugee background. So examples of how we've embedded this are in how we have chosen our topics very carefully, and in being flexible and understanding in terms of things like student absence and missing deadlines. So 3 specific examples I want to highlight are, first one being teacher training. So Aleks led training sessions on trauma-informed pedagogy with our volunteer tutors before they started teaching. And Aleks is going to talk a little bit more about those training materials a little bit later. And the second example is in how trauma-informed pedagogy is embedded in our materials. So for example, we've avoided including some potentially traumatic topics that could bring up traumatic memories or experiences, such as the theme of home. So that's something that we've left out of the programme. And we've been mindful in giving the students choice in what topics and themes they wish to work with in terms of the SDGs. And the third area is in our communications and admin. So we've been very mindful of maintaining a supportive tone when we're communicating with our students. I want to give Julie a special mention. Julie, hi Julie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. So Julie is our programme administrator, and Julie has been really instrumental in helping us to run the programme and in communicating with students and following up on things like absences. And if a student hasn't submitted something, and we follow up in a caring way and ask the students if they need extra support, extra help, or if there's something going on that's preventing them from coming to class and how we can help them. So that's the first area that we want us to look at. And the second area is in terms of social justice pedagogy. So this looks at power and privilege in systems and encourages students to take a critical approach in how they analyse topics. So we've embedded this through using the SDGs as our central theme, and in terms of, as Aleks mentioned earlier, that we're trying to embody SDG 4, which talks about inclusive and equitable quality education. And the final main underlying principle is in the students as partners approach. So in this approach, we try to get our students involved as decision makers and in making choices. So we do this in quite a supportive and scaffolded way and give the students clear boundaries in which they make their decisions. So it could be small things such as which study goals the students want to work on, how they want to organise their groups. Do they want to organise groups themselves? Do they want a tutor to select groups for them? So we give them some choices, but we give the choices with clear boundaries as well. Okay, so that was an overview of the programme and phase 1 and phase 2. And now I'm going to hand back over to Aleks to tell us more about the partners who are working with us.
Thanks, Deirdre. So the RefugEAP Programme has been fortunate enough to be supported by a number of partner organisations, which enables us to remove some of the barriers which our students would have otherwise faced. So we're now going to hear from 3 of these. So that's going to be RefugEAD, Screen Share and Password Testing. So I'm going to hand you over to Ilaria from RefugEAD to start with.
Hi everyone, thank you Aleks. So I'm Ilaria and I'm one of the case workers at RefugEAD, which is a London-based charity that supports refugees and asylum seekers to access higher education and to get back into meaningful employment that is commensurate with their professional skills. We work across 4 different programs. The newest one is the Homes for Ukraine that was set up following the invasion of Ukraine. Then we have the employment team. So my colleagues work in partnership with very high profile employers all around the UK. Then we have the loan and requalification team, for which we dispose up to £10,000 free interest loan, so that refugees can pay for their reaccreditation and the requalification exams. And then we have the language team, which I'm part of. So we partner with at the moment 120 British Council and English UK private language schools all around the UK, as well as universities. And we also have a volunteering program for which basically we try to deliver high quality English courses to our clients so that they can get back into employment or access a university. With regards to our partnership with RefugEAP, since the beginning of the program, we have referred ourselves to RefugEAP 19 students. And on the other hand, RefugEAP referred to us 27 students. Once a client is referred to us, they will have an allocated caseworker that will provide wrap-up support that goes from general advice and guidance regarding, for example, careers or their educational path. We then have a good connections with the many other charities all around the UK. So we tend to signpost our clients for whatever they need. That can go from housing, legal representation, and so forth. To give you a quick example, in October, RefugEAP referred to us a refugee background student. He's a young man from Iran. He's currently one of my clients. Meanwhile he was attending the program, he wanted to apply for university. So I supported him, giving him general advice on how to apply for a postgraduate course. He has received now an offer, a conditional offer from the University of Birmingham to study civil engineering. And in order for him to access the course, he needed to sit the IELTS exam. So 2 weeks ago, he sat the exam. RefugEAP covered the fees of exam, and he's now currently waiting for the results. In all of this, he has been having some issues with his lawyer. So as I posted him with a local charity close to where he lives in Manchester, and he's now in contact with some other caseworkers that are supporting legal advice. So this is pretty much what we do. Finally, with regards to the outcome, I think, of the program and the benefits, based from the feedback of our clients, from what I see, I think that this is a big success. So as it was already mentioned, there is a massive issue with regards to offering spaces in the pre-sessionals. The spaces are limited, the waiting list is particularly long, and refugees and asylum seekers are not usually prioritized. They face more challenges to access high quality courses. So I feel that what RefugEAP gives, it kind of gives, apart from like hope, it helps students to have an idea of the university atmosphere, to what to expect once they start university. And I also feel that it gives them agency, that the sense of agency that they might have lost during their journey. And also in a more practical sense, from what some of my clients said, they're now able to navigate, for example, academic text more easily, extract information. They can present themselves in a more appropriate and complex way. And I think that this is very important for them, not only when they're gonna go to university, but considering as well that many of them still have their asylum claim pending. I think that it's very important for them ahead of the substantial interview with the Home Office, the fact that they're able to give them a perspective to express themselves in an appropriate way. So thank you so much for organizing this. And finally, if any of you wants to get in touch with me, if you want to know more about our work, if you want to support us, you can reach me out anytime at my email, which is ilaria@refugee.org, and I'm gonna now drop it in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ilaria. So now we're going to hear from Illy from Screenshare. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be here today, but she has sent through a little video. So we're going to watch that now.
Hi, my name is Illy and I am the Digital Access Project Coordinator at Screenshare UK. Screenshare is a CIC and a social initiative that collects donated laptops from businesses and individuals, refurbishes them and passes them on to refugees and people seeking asylum across the country. We are a team of 2 part-time members of staff and over 25 incredible volunteers, and in just over 2 years we have distributed over 300 laptops to people across the UK. We are so thrilled to have partnered with the RefugEAP Programme, giving laptops to their students that would have otherwise been without, and each laptop has been carefully looked over and refurbished by a member of our tech team, and then is given as a permanent gift to those who have requested it. There's a scenario that we like to ask people to imagine at ScreenShare, and it's imagine you have several deadlines coming up, you have very important paperwork you need to complete, you're learning a language or a new skill, and you're just reduced to using your phone. That unfortunately is the case for many asylum seekers and refugees in the country, and is why we do what we do. So in this case, we really believe in the importance of digital access and how much it can enhance people's learning opportunities. So that is why we have partnered up with the RefugEAP Programme to make sure that all of their students have an opportunity to learn on a laptop and hopefully make the most of the programme whilst they're in it. And also to reach more people, as it's something that we can offer. So it's been a really great partnership, and we're so happy to have seen it succeed. If you'd like to hear more information about our work, please go to our website, which is www.screen-share.co.uk. You will find our email addresses there. If you have questions regarding laptop referrals or donations, you can contact me on the Access at email. And if you have any questions about ScreenShare more generally, or would like to get involved in volunteering, please contact Moses, our founder and director, on the info at email. Thank you so much.
Okay, so next we're going to hear from Shelley from Password English Language Testing. So she has also pre-recorded a short video message.
Hello, my name is Shelley Vink from Password English Language Testing. At Password, we design, develop, and distribute English language and math tests, which are used to recruit, support, and retain students wherever and whenever they are required. The Password English tests are academically designed and managed by CLELA. They are also formally aligned to the CEFR. We at Password gladly support the RefugEAP Programme in terms of providing free codes for the Password Knowledge plus Writing test. We also provide tech support because it's a fully online test. The Password Knowledge test confirms a student's level of English before starting the program, and it is a sophisticated test of grammar, vocabulary, and reading. It consists of 72 questions across 5 sections, and it takes 1 hour to complete. Password Writing assesses the test taker's ability to write an essay. Test takers are presented with a choice of essay titles. Now, we believe that our contribution to the program is important because it doesn't only help establishing a student's language level, so our partners can see who is suitable for the program. It also takes away a level of stress because now students don't have to figure out where to find an English proficiency test or how to pay for it. If anyone would like to get in touch, you can find all our information on the website. Also, my contact details are there, so please feel free to reach out if you'd like to partner with us or if you'd like to request access codes for the Password Knowledge and Writing tests for refugee background students. Thank you.
Okay, so now we've heard from our partners, and we'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of them for all that they do to support the programme. Now I'm going to hand you back over to Deirdre, who's going to introduce our fabulous volunteer tutors.
Yes, thanks, Aleks. So as we mentioned earlier, that all of our tutors on the RefugEAP course are volunteers. So we've been so lucky to find really passionate, committed, reliable and caring volunteers to work on both phase 1 and phase 2 of the programme. So Aleks and I want to sincerely thank them because the course would not run at all if they weren't involved. So we're going to hear from 3 of our tutors today. So I think we've also got some of our other tutors in the meeting room as well. But 3 of our tutors are here with us today. So we're going to hear a little bit from each one. So we're going to start with Michael. So I'll ask Michael to introduce himself, tell us about why he got involved with RefugEAP and how it's different to other programs.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name's Michael and I teach EAP at Leicester University to STEM students, and I've also been teaching on the City of Sanctuary refugee program for a couple of years. When I heard about this program, I wanted to get involved because, as Aleks and others have already said, there's a huge need for this kind of thing. I mean, we want refugees not just to be able to survive in the UK, but to get back on track, to get on with their lives, to get qualifications, and to live, you know, the best way possible. I was attracted to the program as well because the specific skills I use in my daily work seem to fit with this program, like academic research, academic writing, and knowing what universities expect. I think it's different from other programs because of the underlying principles that Deirdre also mentioned about trauma-informed pedagogy, about students as partners approach. I think it's also different because, well, it's the same thing really. We're informed by those, and that means that we do things slightly differently. We don't insist on people having cameras on, which is quite often the case in pre-sessional courses and so on. We try to be realistic about the topics that we raise. We know that in some cases, you know, at university and in English exams, some of those topics may come up, but we try to make sure that students are comfortable with that. And the main benefit for students, I think, is that they have a course which is tailored to their needs as far as we can make it. And that we work very hard to try to create a place where they can feel safe and get on with what they need to do. That it's a reliable, predictable, safe space. And I think another thing is that they do get tremendous support from Deirdre and Aleks and Julie all the time, as do we, the tutors, and we're very, very aware of that. I was thinking about it today as well. Another benefit, not so much for these students, but for other students, I think that as I've been working on this program, it's also kind of seeped into how I approach other lessons that I do. You know, I find myself making slightly different decisions or thinking a little bit more about other aspects of the context. So hopefully the students on our program benefit. But also I think that maybe students in the other City of Sanctuary programs and also the students who come to the University of Leicester are benefiting from this approach. And that's all I have to say, I think. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you, Michael. So now we'll move on to Rashid. Rashid is going to also introduce himself and talk about why he got involved and also tell us about Homework Club, which is one of our extra support sessions that Rashid runs.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Warm welcome. Actually, it's just from Turkey, where I'm based. So as you can see, we could actually be based in a variety of places, not just in the UK. I'll just start probably a little bit about like why I got involved. Actually, it's a story that started back in Greece around 2015, 2016, when obviously many refugees couldn't actually go from, you know, Turkey, Greece, and on to what they call the Balkan route. And felt kind of stuck in where they were in camps and in desperate need for recognition, but also, you know, as it was said, like getting back into some form of normality in a very kind of, sometimes you would feel like hostile place. I wouldn't say people, but just the situation, the insecurity of all the admin, etc. So I joined a group called ML, and I did a bit of support work, like mostly language skills support there in northwestern Greece. And I also met colleague and friend Aleks there. So I always felt like, you know, things need to be done, and you know, whether I'd be able at some point. And therefore, you know, as soon as I heard about the idea of refugee about over a year ago, I said, well, okay, I'll join, I'll help, I'll sign up to that. Probably something I'd love doing. And my biggest motivation, biggest drive is obviously addressing the social injustice. So social justice, really one thing, like big principle behind it. And as I said, like giving opportunities to asylum seekers and refugees, an opportunity to be heard and help them sort of help rebuilding their lives. As you would say at the beginning, I kind of prepared that, but for me, there should be no barriers to learning, no way anybody feel that at some point their lives stopped. And always wanted to kind of use my teaching experience, obviously expertise in the AP to that end. Time obliged, you know, it's a commitment to be involved in a program like this, and we all have our own work. So I said, okay, we'll find out another way. So we set up the homework club as an extra hour set aside for students to sort of review any points discussed in class. So it's far more informal than normal classes, and students are free to join. Obviously encouraged to take part as regularly as possible, because it's always important to build some kind of relationship. And things we've been working on are mostly writing skills. You probably kind of, anyone teaching AP, you know, would probably have that feeling that this is really probably tougher. So paragraph structure, paraphrasing, etc. And sometimes simply speaking practice, just because it's really, the number of hours may not feel as adequate, but obviously it's just any extra is always valued. And one of the things is that obviously, because we're not necessarily, you know, required to come to class, it's not like compulsory. It's kind of a, you know, taking care of their own time, so time management. You got emphasis obviously on time management, pushing for more learners' autonomy, because I kind of try and get students to tell me what it is that they actually finding wrong. So getting them to feel confident enough to talk about that, like some of the errors, mistakes they make, or some of the things they sort of any questions. So there's a part of reinforcement and reflection in that homework club, however, again, short that is. Also, it's a time when students can talk, and if they kind of wish to spend more time with a tutor, here I am, can actually do that. Despite the challenges, as it was kind of like mentioned earlier, they have sometimes 1-2 jobs, family around. They don't necessarily have like a proper desk or anything, or proper internet connection. So they always want to, you know, there's keenness despite all of that, and they just want to come and simply talk to you, just have someone to talk to that has that connection with the academic world, I suppose, through our course. And a final anecdote is from a student in term 2 who felt, will not name obviously the student, felt a bit homesick, and they asked me about my background, and I'm also the son of an immigrant myself, a forever immigrant, because I'm originally French. I moved to the UK over 20 years ago, and now I live in Turkey, I live in Spain in many places, and I'm a migrant of some sort. I've just been probably lucky in life, in privileged, I suppose. But my parents come from a Muslim background, and it was like, okay, what is it like to be, you know, Muslim in the UK? What is it like to be, you know, or in Europe? What is it like to integrate this new culture? How do you actually communicate, you know, sometimes with them on certain issues? We didn't go into detail because I felt it was probably inappropriate, but they just kind of find that link with you as a tutor, and I feel privileged in that sense, like to be part of that. I think it's very important what we do, redressing those imbalances. More than just, we all have expert teacher, as it was again laid out, with got years experience of teaching AP, but obviously in a very different context. And just to join like what Michael has just said, it does, I mean, I teach in secondary school now, but it does really make us think about our approaches to teaching. Like, how we approach even our own students who feel privileged, but like kind of taking them into account more and learning more about them. Yep. So again, privileged to be here, and it's a great program, and I'm really happy to work with like very talented and professional people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rashid. Okay, and our final tutor is Frances, and Frances is going to also introduce herself and talk about why she got involved, and then think about the impact on her as a tutor.
So hi everyone, I'm Frances. Can you see and hear me? Just checking. Okay, thank you. So yes, I have been teaching at the University of Leicester, an English language tutor, and teaching refugee students for over 6 years now. And I got involved with Leicester City of Sanctuary and taught both face-to-face and online classes. And that led me on to becoming aware of the very specific needs that these refugee and asylum seeker students have. Again, I undertook trauma training with Aleks, which was extremely informative. And just understanding the very difficult circumstances, challenging circumstances and experiences that students, asylum seekers, students and refugee students have undergone has really had an impact on the way that I teach. Just as Michael and Rashid have said, it's not just when I teach refugee students, but definitely also in all my teaching now. I've become aware of the need to meet those specific student needs, to be aware of social justice issues. I think the other reason I got involved was because there was clearly a demand for a much more structured course for asylum students wanting to access higher education, something which gave them some sort of goal to aim for, a clear curriculum, and also introduce them to academic skills and a very different academic culture. So a lot of students are just not familiar with the UK academic culture, and this can become a really big barrier to them accessing higher education. And I feel that this programme really does address a lot of those issues. I would just say that I have learned so much from the students. So yes, I've changed the way I teach and approach my teaching, but the sort of students as partners approach, whereby we encourage and support students to make decisions, to be, to have agency. It's amazing how much they teach us as teachers. And then finally, if they do achieve their goals, if they do access education, it is just so deeply satisfying and rewarding to see this happen. So yeah, thank you, RefugEAP. It's a great program, and I've really enjoyed being involved with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frances, and thanks again to all of our amazing volunteers. We really appreciate all the hard work that you put in as well, and our students really appreciate it too. Okay, so Frances mentioned there about trauma training and how much she learned from it. So we're going to ask Aleks to talk a little bit more about that now.
Yeah, so in terms of the trauma training, just to say that I've now reworked the trauma training that the refugee tutors completed, and I've now made it into a set of self-access materials available on this web page. So basically there's if you fill in an online form on that web page, then you'll get a link to the materials, and the materials, if you work through them in order, then there's a set of tasks, and it takes you through a number of different video presentations, reading materials, tasks which can help you reflect on different areas of your practice, So the official launch of these materials is now, basically this session now. So they're available anytime from now if you'd like to access them. And we hope that this will make trauma training more accessible to more people and that these materials will be helpful. So next slide, please. So now we're going to hear from one of our amazing RefugEAP students. So you're going to be hearing from Yulia Knyupa, who is a student from Ukraine.
Hello everyone, my name is Yulia. I'm originally from Ukraine and now temporarily based in the UK due to the war in my country. And today I want to share with you my experience with RefugEAP Programme. It is a program designed by very nice people, and I'm very grateful to all of them to creating this chance for us. And I found this program online when I was looking for opportunities to improve my academic English, and I found this chance and applied and took part in the first cycle of the program in autumn 2022, and now I'm participating in the second part or cycle of this program. The first part was devoted to improving of our general academic English skills. So I learned how to write essays and how to collaborate with the team and a lot of other little important things. And the second part was designed to help us to prepare for IELTS exam. So I needed all these to prepare myself for future university life. I want to apply here in England for making my master degree in illustration, so I really needed to improve my skills. So I can tell for 100% that I'm truly satisfied with the quality and the flow of the program. It is designed with love, and I received so much support both from academic side and psychological side. And in general, the materials of the program were made with real care about us and to make our education interesting and effective. So cannot recommend it more. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a good time with RefugEAP. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Yulia, for that awesome testimonial. So we're going to move on now. Before we move on to questions, we're just sharing the references that we use for this presentation, and also some further resources that you might find useful. Next slide, please. So yeah, here you can find the link to the RefugEAP Programme webpage with lots of further information about the programme. There's also a British Council Teaching English podcast episode which features RefugEAP. So there's further interviews with the tutor and students that you can listen to there. We also have a web page for the RefugEAP network, which is something a bit different from the programme. The network is basically a support network for English for academic purposes practitioners who are working to widen participation through English language pathways. So that might be something that some of you might be interested in joining. And there's also a RefugEAP network Padlet with lots of useful resources for anyone looking to set up this sort of provision. So now I think we can move on to some questions.
I think Julie's been keeping an eye on the questions for us, so maybe Julie, you can ask us a question that you find. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So we've had lots of questions. So question from Kelsey. So since it's not compulsory, and I'm sure a lot of students have a lot going on, so how have you had issues with student attendance and retention? And if so, how did you deal with these situations?
Okay, so I'll start answering this question. Thank you for your question. Yes, this is something. So we're in phase. We're in the second run of the course now. So we've done the pilot stage so far, and then we're now midway through the second iteration of phase one. Yes, attendance is something that we have had some issues with and problems, but I think it's sort of to be expected given the the situation that our students are in. And as you mentioned, the students are trying to balance a lot of different things. Some of them are working part-time, some of them have got caring responsibilities, some of them have got health issues. So there's a lot of things going on with our students. One way, well, we've tried a few different ways of helping to mitigate any issues with attendance. So in our pilot stage, we did have quite a lot of students who dropped out sort of midway through the course, and we think that maybe we firstly hadn't selected students who were at a high enough level to be able to cope with the demands of the course, so it might have made it really difficult for them. And second of all, we think that maybe we didn't give clear enough expectations to the students of what was involved. So in this run of the course, we raised our entrance requirements by 0.5 IELTS, so now IELTS 5.5, and we also had a dedicated induction week to really explain really thoroughly what the expectations were, what was involved in the course, the level of time commitment, and the level of all the different support mechanisms that were in place as well. So I think we've made the expectations a lot clearer. We have had a couple of students who have withdrawn and occasional issues with attendance, but I don't think it's as to the extent that it was in the pilot phase. We've also got Julie to support us in, as I mentioned, in following up on absences and trying to figure out if there's something going on, if the students need extra support with something. So we try to take that approach and be, really supportive if somebody's not coming, and find out what's going on. But yeah, I just think given the nature of this course, it's something that, there may always be issues with. Aleks, do you want to say anything else?
Yes, exactly. I think given the nature of the student cohort, I think we always have to expect that there's going to be a greater degree of kind of student withdrawal and students needing to be absent. But like Deirdre said, we've put in place more mechanisms now to try to prevent that from happening in the first place. And we're continuing with our strategy of being supportive, like reaching out to students as soon as they don't attend a class, reaching out to them, seeing what might be going on for them, whether there's anything we can support with, and trying to kind of help out as soon as we can in a supportive way. I think looking at the time, maybe we should move on to the next question now, Julie.
Yes, next question. So how do you recruit and retain volunteers with such high qualifications and the regular commitment required? And a lot of educational programs I know of tend to have problems in these areas.
That is a good question. I mean, one thing that we did is I think we kind of set out from the start. We made it clear that this was going to be quite a big commitment. So I think anyone who might not have been able to commit to this number of hours or this number of weeks probably was deterred from applying in the first place. So all of the volunteers who came forward in response to our call for volunteers were people who already were 100% committed to this. Maybe this is something actually that one of our volunteers might like to answer, because I can't really speak for them in terms of why they have committed to this program in particular. Would anyone like to jump in on this one?
I'm happy to say something. So I think you volunteered to do something because you believe in it. So it very much aligns with my values. I think you're right, Aleks. You did make it very clear from the outset what the commitment was. It's also part of a research project, so that adds quite a lot of interest and motivation. There was quite a formal process. You had to apply, you had to provide information about your qualifications and your experience. So I guess, you know, there was no doubt that this was something that you couldn't take on lightly. And once you start to do something like this, I guess you want to see it through. Don't know, Michael, you might have something to add to that.
I just totally agree with you, Frances. To me, it seems like a completely natural thing to do. And I think it benefits us hugely. We meet these really wonderful people. And if we can help them, that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, Rashid, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, I think an element that is great about it, I suppose, it's just the fact that it's structured like any other. It would feel like like a normal EAP course. It's the material there, and there's a presence again. The second, like it will all have some expertise in it. So it's kind of having the motivations, the expertise. It's kind of time is never an issue. I think the commitment that you put in it. It's over the course of 10 weeks. So it's usually easily dealt with, and you see it. I think the great benefit of it is that you contribute as a tutor, maybe as giving feedback if necessary, and you help in the improvement. Apologies, it's still at school. Can I hear probably the bell? But you can contribute into it, so it's actually a past part of development of this course. That's great.
Thank you, Rashid. Yeah, I think I totally agree that all of our volunteers, because this has been like a pilot, we're running this as a pilot project and we're kind of gathering data at the same time. All of our tutors have been very much involved in inputting into the growth and development and improvement, the continuous improvement of the programme. So I think there's that, but I think I would hope that, well, I think from what the tutors have said, that they're growing also with the programme, with the students, and the fact that there is, for example, trauma training wrapped up within the programme itself. I think all of the tutors have said that they've kind of gained something from that and have been able to take that and perhaps apply it to different contexts as well. So yeah, I think the programme and Deirdre and I and the tutors and the students are all kind of growing together as part of the programme.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Another question. So is the phase 1 or 2 course accredited or recognized by potential universities as a pre-entry requirement, or are you relying on students being prepared to get an IELTS test independently?
Okay, I think I'll answer this one. Probably this is the last question. I think we're out of time. At the moment, we're not accredited to be an entry, to be recognised as a entry level course for universities. Something that we're thinking about that we could work towards in the future, but there's so many different elements involved, like the amount of time that we have on the course, it's only part-time, and how could that be equivalent to a full-time pre-sessional, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's a lot of complexities behind achieving that sort of status. But yeah, so we are giving the students the skills and the language and the preparation that they would need to be successful. So we think even though it's not maybe officially recognized, it'll still help them a lot in being able to get onto a university course and being successful when they do get onto one. So yes, in short, the IELTS is still the route that we're using, but we're helping the students access IELTS as well through a partnership with RefugEAP, as you heard earlier. So yeah, still a work in progress, but hopefully we've made some good steps that will still be beneficial to our students for now. But thank you everybody for all your questions. I think maybe if there's anything else we can follow up on, you can see Aleks and my contact details on the next slide. So if you want to get in touch with us about anything in particular, you can email us on the central mailbox. You can contact Aleks or myself directly, and you can follow us on Twitter to see any other updates. Thank you everybody for joining us today.